We're going to walk down to the Capitol, and I'll be there with you. And we fight. We fight like hell. We're going to walk down to the Capitol, and we're going to cheer on our brave senators and congressmen and women. We're going to...
Oh, really? Huh. Well, there you go. Yet another. Shouldn't this be illegal? Yeah, I think it is. I mean, to be fair, the Trump administration, Trump himself, has done a lot of legal work behind the scenes to make these media companies more liable for the kind of things that they say, you know? I mean, that's why they just won a very large lawsuit against the network that I think it was CBS, I believe, is the one that does 60 Minutes. This is also the first time that he was on that network since him winning the lawsuit, because a lot of these media companies, they were very instrumental in, you know, election interference, lying about the president. The legacy media companies are pretty much across the board 90% negative reporting about Trump. And the reason why is because they are bought and paid for by large corporations with vested interests in making sure that Trump does not do well. You know, they are the enemies of the people in many ways. And luckily, we have alternate forms of media, or else I think things would be much worse in this country if we didn't have things like Twitter, we didn't have things like social media that were able to tell the real story, as opposed to relying on these legacy media companies, which we have seen they lie and they cheat and they will say anything as long as it's politically convenient to them. The BBC have started a program called Unspun to tackle misinformation. Well, I mean, the thing is, when they speak about misinformation, what they're really saying is that it's wrongthink, in the sense that it goes against their political ideology. I mean, that's what it is. I mean, PBS, NPR, which were publicly funded by the United States previously, they were some of the worst far left mouthpieces, saying just absolute partisan hack talking points that was all only negative about Trump. And so, you know, they were huge about this whole misinformation thing, right? But they are the fake news. They are the lying media. They're the legacy media. And they're failing for a reason. It's because people are waking up to the fact that they've been lied to by corporations. They've been lied to by media companies that are not interested in actually telling news and actually telling the truth. What they're interested in is selling ad space, on cozying up to corporations that give them money for ad space. That's what it is, you know? It's a 24-hour news cycle. It's been absolutely disastrous for the news. All right, here we go. This is more to this BBC situation, apparently. Let's check this out. The BBC accused of editing Trump's speech to make him seem to back the Capitol riot. A whistleblower memo says Panorama completely misled viewers by cutting key lines. Let's see what this is. Here we go.
The BBC claims to be the pinnacle of impartial reporting, but what if there was an internal dossier that revealed that wasn't the case? The Telegraph has seen a letter that reveals one of the BBC's own independent advisors repeatedly warned that the broadcaster had serious and systemic problems. A week before the US election, BBC Panorama released a documentary called Trump: A Second Chance, and in it, they played the following clip.
We're going to walk down to the Capitol, and I'll be there with you, and we fight. We fight like hell.
But Trump didn't in fact say this at all. The BBC spliced together two clips that took place 54 minutes apart. So let's go through it again.
We're going to walk down to the Capitol, and I'll be there with you.
Now, see there, between Capitol and, that's a cut. Here's what Trump actually said.
We're going to walk down to the Capitol, and we're going to cheer on our brave senators and congressmen and women.
Wow.
It's different.
Wow.
It wasn't until nearly an hour later that he then said the second part of the BBC's version.
We're going to walk down to the Capitol and we fight. We fight like hell.
No
Now,
way.
it's true that a lot of people will still feel Trump's claims that in 2021 the election was stolen were entirely inappropriate and unbecoming of a figure in politics. But irrespective of your personal views on Trump, the question remains, how is a national broadcaster funded by taxpayers on the premise that it will provide impartial reporting allowed to splice together content in a way that one of its own advisors said materially misled viewers? But if members of its own editorial standards committee have no faith in the broadcaster, you have to ask, should we?
Wow, that is insane. Wow, this is my first time hearing about this. That is crazy that BBC was openly misleading the public. A publicly funded broadcaster, mind you, BBC, was willingly misleading the public about what the United States president was saying. That is quite literally fake news. That is damning evidence right there. But I'm sure liberals will ignore this, right? Just insane, just crazy that they can get away with that. I hope proverbial heads roll at BBC over this. That's just terrible. That is absolutely terrible. Wow, what an interesting story. That is actually crazy. I'm gonna close this. I'm gonna close that right now. It's just a perfect example of how you can make, say, mean, present in any way. Yeah, but I feel like especially if you're a publicly funded news organization, then I feel like you have some sort of responsibility to be in the public interest, right? And if you're misleading the public for a political reason, right? Because the people that are running the company are left-leaning or whatever it may be, if in that sense, that's not good. That's biased reporting. That's fake news. That quite literally is fake news. I don't know. That's not good, And I feel like really we're so separate. What's the word? We're so divided, right? Politically, we're so divided that I feel like it's going to be hard for people to see the forest from the trees when it comes to things like this if you're, say, on the left. But anyone who cares about truth and honesty and reporting, and they should be up in arms about something like that. Just like in the same sense that I think people should be really upset with the proposition in California, Prop 50, which is currently being voted upon today, which seems to disenfranchise millions of Californians who happen to be Republicans by gerrymandering and making it so that a Republican is going to have a very hard time of ever getting any sort of representation in the country or in the state. I think it's got a huge problem that anyone who actually cares about the state of the republic or about democracy should be up in arms about. Yet somehow, for some reason, we have quite a few Democrats which are cheering on this effort to remove the ability of people, citizens of the United States of America, to be represented in government. It's crazy, in my opinion, right? But anyways, that's just terrible. That really is terrible. And it's probably going to happen even more, unfortunately, where we're having things misconstrued to us in media because of AI, because of all sorts of techniques they're going to use, right? It's a very scary proposition. And I hate to bring it back to this because I feel like I'm always saying this, but it's also something that they did in 1984. George Orwell's 1984 is becoming more and more apt every single day with the way things are going today. So if you want to get a little bit of a sneak preview as to where things may be going, I highly recommend reading 1984 from George Orwell. Anyways, moving on along.